Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Revitalise Your Email Marketing, Grow and Engage Audiences with Email. Apologies for the slight delay in starting with a few technical hitches. Thanks for attending. I'm Jacqueline Newers. I'm the tech champion for the Digital Culture Network. My specialism is email marketing. I'm going to self-describe. I'm an older woman with brown hair, and today I'm wearing a brown jumper. Okay. We're just going to just run through a few housekeeping things. Um, as I've said, welcome. Today's webinar is scheduled to last an hour, including the question and answer session at the end. If you would like to use the closed captions, please click the CC button. And I'd just like to welcome our two British Sign Language BSL interpreters, Salome and Naomi. Thanks very much. And Ewan is doing our captions today, so thank you very much to them. The webinar is being recorded and it'll be available on the website alongside additional resources within 7 days. Please do take this opportunity to say hello in the chat to everyone. Please select everyone from the drop-down and use the Q&A button to log your questions as and when you think of them. You're also very welcome to use the reaction buttons. I see a couple of reactions so far. Okay. So for those of you who don't, I think we'll just get started. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, just want to briefly talk about the Digital Culture Network. We're a team of 13 tech champions, and we each assigned with a specialism, different specialisms. Some of those are listed there on the screen grab. We're funded by the Arts Council England. And we provide webinars and events like this. We have our website with resources, articles, and our recorded webinars are on there. And we also do a series of do one-to-one chats with people. So talking about their specific challenges or priorities at that point in time. And they can cover all the different specialisms that we cover. So that's whether that's your strategy, digital strategy and marketing, your website, search engine optimization, social media, email marketing, in my case. And the way to get in touch with us is to go onto the website, click the Get in Touch button and fill in this form so that you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're looking to talk about in the one-to-one. So in today's session, we're looking at why email marketing matters. So I'm going to, it's quite straightforward, but email has been around for quite a long time. I think it's a bit like an old piece of furniture or that's really familiar to you, or, you know, that old coat that you really love, but it's been around for so long that you take it a bit for granted. So we're just going to look at why it's still relevant, still very important and worth spending some time on. And that's our first section, and some up-to-date stats on usage. In the second section, I'm just going to look, as a tech champion, I'm contacted, by a whole range of individuals in terms of artists and musicians and authors, right through to larger organizations. And from these experiences and from my experience of email marketing, I've picked out the top 5 email marketing challenges and opportunities for people to focus on. And it's great for those people who haven't started, just to think these things through, to consider and reflect. And of course, if you're in the thick of it, to go back and have a look at, have you got the fundamentals in place? Are they working for you to optimize your email? And then we're going to do the Q&A. I did notice in some of our signups that Some people haven't got started yet. So I hope that this will be particularly useful to you. So in our first section of why email marketing matters, I'm going to go through the different boxes. So we're going to start with, it is easy to start. It is easy to get started with email marketing. A lot of the email service providers like MailChimp, Digital, Klaviyo, Constant Contact, these are all names that might be familiar to you. Some of them have either a demo that you can just try out and see how it works, or they actually have a free version that you can just get started with. In today's attendees, I noticed that over 52% of you are using MailChimp, but we also have Digital with in those people that registered. That was about 14% of people. I saw that there were some people who haven't yet started, and then under 10%, we had quite a range of other email service providers, people using Klaviyo, Constant Contact, Campaign Monitor, Get Response, and so on, Wordfly. The great thing about email is that it's an owned channel. So for me, this means that you control the messaging, you control the contact data, you control the timing, and in a way that you're not trying to second guess an algorithm, say on social media. If you decide that you don't want to stay on a social media channel, you do find that you have to walk away with nothing. The channel will own all that contact data. That's not the case with email marketing. So that's why it's so fundamental to your business model. And of course, it drives traffic to your website. It's really effective at doing that, because a lot of the time, the people on your contact list in the best possible world are people who actually want to hear from you. And so if you're talking to them in a relevant way, it will lead to traffic to your website to find out more. It's really good. Email marketing is really good at brand building. That's that thing about owning the message, understanding what you want, what do you want to talk to them about, who do you want to engage, and reinforcing your brand values. Automations or triggered emails, these are ones that you get, for example, when you sign up, you get an email to say, oh, thanks very much for signing up, and here's some things you might be interested in. Or ticketing automations, where you get you book something or registered for something and you get the event details in emails that follow. The ability for email to do that creates a highly personalized customer experience. And those automations actually, you might not be surprised, but they perform better than any of the batch and send emails like the newsletter, because they're sending the right information at the right time to the right person. Of course, it's very cost effective. We're going to look at some of those stats further on in the presentation, just how cost effective it is. And in terms of segmentation, that's that relevant, coming back to relevance and sending people information that they actually want to hear or know about. You're able to segment your audience into to creating a genuine positive customer experience. And that's very much linked to the customer, building the customer relationship, which is effective and means part of the reason that building a customer relationship is so important is because if you're constantly acquiring new customers, acquisition, always getting in new people, that costs 5 to 6 times more than keeping the people that you've already made contact with. So that's also why email marketing is so vital in that role of retention, keeping the people you know. Okay, and we're just going to move on to a couple of other stats that 99% of email users check their inbox daily. We find that 58%, the first thing they do in the morning, and I hope some of you amongst that maybe, they're not checking the news or social media first thing, they're turning to their inbox. And part of the reason email marketing is so effective is because of an easy way to remember it is because of these four magical T's. Now, they're not really magical. They're actually based in common sense, but they are features of email marketing that make it perform well. So it's targeted. We talked about the ability for it to segment, for you to segment your audience and really create relevant messaging. It's timed, and you can time your messaging along with things that as things happen for you as an organization, and that you want people to engage in. It's tracked, so you know what's working, you know what isn't working, and you can build on success. And of course, you can test different things. So it means that you can try different approaches and learn from them. And of course, it's infinitely flexible. You know, whether it's a confirmation, invitation, registration, or transactional, is really, you know, you can adapt your email to your message. I mentioned the effectiveness in terms of return on investment. This graph shows how it's an upward direction of travel, and for every £1 spent, how much revenue is generated. For example, in 2019, for every £1 spent, it generated £42 of tracked revenue. We obviously had a bit of a blip in 2020, but you can see that it's still an upward trajectory, and it delivers. So I'm going to pass over to my colleague, Dean Shaw, and just to ask you about how frequently are you contacting your core audiences on average by email?
Yes, so we're launching the poll now. Hopefully, everyone can see that. So, how frequently are you contacting your core audience on average for email? Daily, weekly, every other week, monthly, quarterly, or every leap year? I did that one myself, Jacqueline, just to see if we had anyone. 3% apparently of people every other leap year. So, yeah,
If
not
you're
so.
not already, some people haven't started yet with email. How, if you can still take part. Just tell us how often you're planning to talk to people, perhaps. Sort of imagining that you're in that situation.
Okay, so we've got about we're 87% of participants so far. And just to give you sort of a running total at the moment, 1% of people are doing it daily. Weekly, 23%, every other week, 15%, but by far the largest is monthly at 47% and then quarterly at 9%. So I suppose the frequency of those contacting their audience is mostly monthly at 47%. So quite high.
Thanks very much, Dean. Thanks.
That's all right. I'm going to end the poll and then I'm going to vanish and then come back a bit later.
I think, thanks. So my question to you would be, are you able to confidently say that you've got the optimum frequency? And have you had a chance to test frequency to check that you're in tune with your audience and what they want? And there's, again, the ability for email marketing to test that is you know, is there. So if you'd like any support on doing that, please do book in a one-to-one, and we can talk about your specific frequency and how to see whether there is an optimum frequency and if you've got it right. Thanks very much. Okay. So Dean.
Yes.
Oh, no, I've got it. Sorry. Thank you. There we go. Sorry, it was for me to close the poll. Thank you very much. So, one of the other questions that I'm frequently asked is whether young people are still engaging at the same level as older age audiences, and these are some statistics from about internet users by profile by age, and it's based on the US, United States, and we can see that obviously at 93.6% of um, um, internet users who are using email is scoring highly in 25 to 44 age range at 93.6%. So that age range are using email the most of those internet users. But you can see that at the age range of 15 to 24, it's still at 90%, and which is the equivalent of the 45 to 64-year-olds. What I'd say is that for me, it's not about so obviously social media is very popular amongst those 15 to 24-year-olds, and it is growing, but it's not an either or, it's an and situation. So it's social media and email usage, and it for that younger age range, and they are and it's just part of their digital landscape, and they've grown up familiar in that world. So this last slide about why email marketing matters. So this is a very simplified version of a loyalty funnel, just talking about the process of going from a customer going from awareness to consideration, moving down to conversion and loyalty. And the reason it's shaped as a funnel is because those people ending up at loyalty at the end is a smaller number from those people that will just be aware of your offer and brand. I've talked about acquisition, how expensive it is to generate those people who are aware of you. 5 times, 6 times more expensive to get new people into your funnel. So that's why retention, keeping them in that funnel and creating more loyal customers is to your advantage. SEMrush have produced some statistics about retention. After making a first purchase, a customer has a nearly 30% chance of buying again, so a repeat purchase. And then after a second purchase, there's a nearly 50% chance of them buying again. So it's really within you, it's in your interest to try and keep them within that funnel, creating that loyalty so that they form the bulk of your audience and or customer base. So today we're just going to look at those top 5 email marketing challenges and opportunities. Hopefully, why email marketing matters has given you a picture of why email is still relevant and important. And now we're just going to look at some key aspects of email, some priorities. We're going to look at a lot of people do contact me about growing their contact lists and how do we increase that, the rate of growth. What do we do with people who are dormant or inactive? What happens if you're offering free events or free workshops, free festivals, and you don't have any contact data? So what could we do in that scenario? I've got a couple of ideas there that you could consider. In looking at the smart targeting, looks at, okay, how could you target your segment your audience to make it optimize your email. And in the 5th section, in at number 5, is making it all click. So just making sure that you've got your ducks in a row, the right person, right time, and the right message. So are you measuring that to make sure that it's all working together? So growing your contacts. In at number 1, I've come up with 3 key considerations that I can see when I look at organizations that have got good rates of growth for their contacts. The first one is all about knowing your audience. And this sounds really simple, but actually behind it is often quite a robust strategy. And, having an understanding of who you want to talk to, what you want them to do, and how is really key to getting this right. What is it that you're offering them? They're going to give you that really precious thing of permission to contact them by email, their contact details. What are you offering them in return? Why are they going to open your email and not all those others in their inbox? And with an increasingly busy and complex digital landscape, fact and fiction sometimes difficult to distinguish. So be transparent. This is all about creating trust with your audiences. So if you're looking to grow your contacts, just making sure you're GDPR and PCR compliant. And we're going to touch on that a bit. I'm going to show in these examples how people have actually put that into practice. So hopefully bring it to life a little bit. So this is from the National Gallery. I think it shows a really they've got a knowledge of their audience will respond to. So that's knowing your audience. They've thought about the language. They've thought about the look and feel of it. It's enticing and it's inviting, I think, and they've created value by hearing about exhibitions and offers, and they've also further down the line they tell you what to expect in terms of how to support us. So that's about the fundraising side of things, and also about not bombarding people. This example is from Bristol Old Vic. Again, they've thought about the language. They've thought about what that people's experience of emails. And so we send good emails. They've also not hidden this in their footer. They've put, so the convention is often to put the email newsletter sign up in the footer of your website. And then so it's quite passive when it's in the footer. It does obviously stay there for wherever people navigate across your website, but in the Bristol Old Vic's case, they've also put it as a header, so it's actually right across the top of their homepage. And they've offered, I think, their knowledge of their audience. They've told them, you're going to be the first to hear. It's great language, giving me something of value. You're going to hear before anybody else. And your data's safe with us. So there's that trust factor. They're telling us, we're not going to share your data. We're not going to be casual about this permission to contact. And the third example of these signups, these are all from that very common touch point, which is the website, and getting people to make that initial committing initially to signing up to a newsletter. And it's the most common form of growing contacts. This one, again, they've thought about the language. Don't miss a thing. In the case of the Natural History Museum, they have quite a broad range of things that they want to send to people. And so they've mentioned it. They've been transparent about it. News, science, exhibitions, events, products, services, and fundraising activities. So they're telling you right at the start what you can expect. They also mention the third-party content from their corporate partners and other museums that they will include. However, in a trust, to create that trust, they're not going to share personal details with those third parties. And they've also understood their audience because they've mentioned an age limit. So they've said to sign up to this newsletter, you must be over the age of 13. If you haven't done so recently and you're using email, I recommend auditing all your touch points. This one's the most common one, the one that people frequently use, and it's the main source of signups. But ticketing is also very important. How are you creating an enticing offer to get people to connect with you and engage with you and opt in? It's the classic format, the opt-in. It's called explicit consent under GDPR and PCR, because it's saying tick here to receive information from us. I'm now going to look at an alternative to this, and this is called the soft opt-in, and it's slightly different from explicit consent. Under GDPR, you are able, you can use an opt-out statement to give people the opportunity when at the moment of transaction, and it's slightly different. So it's not saying yes, I would like to hear from you. It's a statement saying if you don't want to hear, please tick the box. So it's the opposite. The soft opt-in. Why is it interesting? We're going to look at some factors of why it's interesting, and also what's changing about it. But I think it's easiest if you have a look at an example. So here's the example. It's actually quite difficult to find examples in the arts and culture sector. Generally, people use explicit consent. So yes, I'd like to hear from you. In this case, it's tick here if you prefer not to hear from LW theatres. And they don't use it for every event. They use it for selected events. The advantage of using the soft opt-in at the point of purchase is that it's the quickest way to grow your contact list. However, some considerations. The trust factor. You have to consider whether your audience will be expecting to be added to your mailing list, only having been offered an opt-out statement. You will generate lower quality contact data. Statistically, this data won't have as long a customer lifetime value, and so it won't generate as much revenue per contact. You'll also need to put in place some, I recommend this anyway, but perhaps more actively put in place, those policies for anybody who becomes sort of dormant or lapsed or inactive on your list, and you're more likely to get more of them when you use the soft opt-in. So this segues nicely into what to do with inactive contacts. Sorry, apologies. I realize I've just the one thing about the soft opt-in that is about to change is that under a bill with the data use and access bill, it's currently with the Lords. One of the constraints of soft opt-in is that you're not able to speak to people about fundraising or campaigning. It's and the difficulty with that has been challenging for a lot of charities and lots of arts organisations. In theory, that is potentially about to change, and we will put it in the digital culture newsletter as and when that develops, and the outcome. Apologies. So moving on to inactive contacts. How do we, what are the disadvantages of inactive contacts? Well, of course, there's a cost factor. These are people who are sitting on your mailing list or contact list and then not actually engaging with you. That's either they're not opening or they're not clicking. And obviously, email service providers, they charge cost per contact, so it has a cost implication for you. So just leaving them there will mean that, sadly, it's costing you money. It also drags your performance stats down. So you can imagine that the percentage of people either opening or clicking through on your email list will be a smaller percentage if you have a portion of your list that isn't engaging with you. And it can affect deliverability because the Yahoo and Gmail, if they see that a number of your emails are not being opened over a period of time, they may just direct your email to the spam folder. And of course, there's a sustainability issue. We don't want to be, although each individual email only has a small carbon footprint, collectively, they do have an environmental impact. So you really don't want to be sending out emails to people who aren't opening them or reading them. I recommend running reactivation campaigns, and we're going to look at some examples of these. Reactivation campaigns are where you target those dormant or lapsed or inactive contacts on your list and ask them if they really want to be still in contact with you currently. And here's some good examples. This is from the Royal Academy of Arts. And I think thinking about the language, we haven't heard from you in a while. It's quite a light touch. It explains what they're going to do. We'd love to keep you updated about everything going on, but if we don't hear from you, we'll take you off our email list. And they give you lots of options. There's an option which is keep me updated, but there's also the option to unsubscribe. In the same email, they also ask if they can tempt you back with some offers and incentives. So 10% off at the shop or a treat at the cafe. They've really thought about it. But when you're targeting, remember, when you're targeting lapsed or inactive contacts, the response rate will be low. Because by their very nature, you're targeting people who haven't opened or haven't engaged with you over a period of time. I've got another one from Hall for Cornwall. This is another automated email. This was after a period of inactivity on my part for about, I think it was about 4 months. And then it triggered this email. They, in the copy, the text that they write, they've tried to again, a nice, light, friendly tone. We've noticed you've been keeping a low profile recently. Maybe the new Cornwall Playhouse isn't your bag, or you're less able to get to the theatre, or perhaps you're just lying in wait for your favourite show. They try and tackle the fact of ticket pricing. Remember, tickets for most shows start at £15, so trying to remove any barriers that people might have to coming back to the theatre. They offer the opportunities, keep me in the loop, so stay on that contact list. They also use this as a point of, gathering feedback. Let us know what's stopping you from booking by getting in touch. So let us know. And of course, if you're done with us for now, that's okay too. We'll miss you like a Cornishman misses his pasty. And I really like that because there's not many emails that I see that include pasties. So these are just some of the examples. But if you'd like to set up an automation, or you'd like to test a reactivation campaign, please do get in touch. So I briefly touched on free events or places, free collections, museums and galleries where there is no contact data. So you haven't got a ticketing pipeline where you've got people coming in, making a purchase where you can ask them whether they'd like to stay in touch. The newsletters generating small amounts of data, but not really, a huge contact list. I'm aware that as free events doesn't necessarily mean that you can't collect contact data. And I just wanted to look at a couple of key examples of this that I've had the opportunity to have some feedback about whether they're working because they're being monitored and tracked. So let's get straight to it. In the case of the National Gallery, they have obviously the large free collection, which generates large amounts of people. But of course, they don't actually need to. They can just walk into the gallery, and at no point is there any chance to actually kind of engage with them in terms of asking them to sign up to a mailing list at that point, or a contact list. So they created Plan Your Visit, and this builds on that the a trend during COVID where you would actually book a set time to come to the gallery, and they've positioned it as a service and just testing it to see what appetite there is out there. And initially, it was a very light touch customer experience, and it included. They were very keen to make sure that you didn't to avoid people thinking they had to get a ticket, but to point out the advantage if they did book a ticket. So book a free general admission ticket to help save time on arrival. Receive updates ahead of your visit, and they again reiterating that tickets include entry to our collection and free exhibitions. So just trying to make it very clear. Initially, it was very light touch, and it was just about booking a time slot. And then over time, as they've seen it's been successful, it's generated donations, so revenue. It's also, they're using it now as an opportunity to cross-sell and upsell. So there's a companion guide that they're selling, or related items in the shop. But of course, fundamentally, the ultimate value is that they've got permission to contact their core audience. And another example that I've come across, and that I think when you're talking to business contacts, one of the difficult challenges under GDPR is that, well, an advantage is that as a business contact, you're able to email people without necessarily seeking their consent. So the individual rules that apply from GDPR and PECR don't apply to business contacts unless they are sole traders or partnerships. So you're classed as a corporate subscriber. However, of course, emailing somebody doesn't necessarily mean that you've got them engaged. And so in this case, Marigold have created some resources. So for which I need to register my interest, so that they can then see I've demonstrated that I am actually engaged, and they can then follow up with that. So in this case, they're offering me a cheat sheet for the July campaign, the month of July, and it's to help support my email marketing. I've seen this with resources for schools, or free training for artists and musicians, workshops, or reports and information for arts professionals. It's just a device, and I'm hoping that this might be a useful example. So just in terms of targeting, and the one of email's strengths that we've talked about is that it enables you to understand who you're talking to, and it enables you to segment them by interest or behavior. You can then deliver relevant content, which then means that your email performs better. Because most organizations aren't just talking to one audience type. Often you have a multifaceted offer, different profile audiences, schools, general public, businesses, creatives, funders, people to work with you. Segmentation has the advantage of enabling greater personalization, meeting the needs of your customer, making yourself relevant. The examples that I've chosen for this are around segmentation right at the start of the customer relationship, because if you can make yourself relevant at the start of the customer relationship, the emails will perform better, and you'll build that customer relationship that you're looking to create, ultimately generating that loyalty that you're looking to create. So this is an example from the Barbican Arts Centre in London. It's one of the main art centres in London. It's got a large offering covering music, theatre, cinema, dance, visual arts. And so right at the outset, when they're asking people to sign up to their newsletters, they're looking for people to select their preferences. Before they've got any behavioural data at all, they're looking for people to say what they're interested in primarily. A couple of considerations when you're looking to create segments, just to make sure that they're broad enough to allow for your future variation, so you're future-proofed, so you haven't boxed yourself into a corner in terms of it's such a narrow segment that actually, well, can I talk to them about this new area of programming that we've developed? And that also it's sufficiently differentiated so that you haven't got lots of overlap. One of the difficulties, the challenges for the Barbican is, of course, you may have that people are interested in a large in all of these, and then how do you manage that email schedule, because you really don't want to be over emailing people and bombarding them. My second example is where North Somerset Arts have appreciated that they've got a business to business audience as well as an arts attendees. So they've separated them out. They realised that they wanted to be able to speak to them in a very specific way, and so they've asked, "What are you interested in?" They've asked them to identify themselves. I am an artist interested in participating. I am interested in visiting arts events. And they're not mutually exclusive. So they do, as an organisation, they keep an eye on that overlap to make sure they're not affecting their email performance by sending emails out in the same time frame. But they have now got, they now can create more relevant content based on how people have identified themselves and what their interests are. I couldn't find an arts example of this automation, or triggered email. It's part of the welcome automation when you sign up from Greenpeace. And so the initial sign up, I submitted my information, my contact information. Subsequently, I received this email. And they're not segmenting me for good. They're pinning me, putting me in one segment and not another. They're actually accepting that I might be interested in multiple issues, but how could they talk to me about the most relevant ones? So we know all the issues we work on are important and interconnected, but if you had to pick just one, which one would you say is most important? So they're doing some profiling. And the welcome automation, that one that you receive when you first sign up, generates the highest open rates of over 90%. So you can see that in that kind of honeymoon phase, it's really valuable. And this is the chance where you're setting out your relationship parameters and finding out more, hopefully, about your contacts to be able to send that relevant information. I've signed up to hundreds of email lists, and this is the only example that I've seen of where they've used that welcome automation to kind of find out more. But you may know others. In at number 5, and the final section is just the value of email. We talked about tracking and making it all come together and working out what stats, what results, what performance can really help you inform your decision making. And I've got a couple of things that might help in terms of that landscape and making it all work together, and some benchmarking. So back to a poll, Dean. Thank you very much. I hope you're
I'm
still with.
here. I'm
Yeah.
here.
Yes.
Right, hold on a second. Let's just right. Well done so far. This is going really well. We're just going to go and get the other poll up. Launch. Here we go. So, how frequently do you have time to evaluate your email performance? Wow, they're coming in thick and fast. These numbers now. Um, Incredible how fast people are going. But also the questions are coming in thick and fast. If you haven't had a chance to do so already, and you do have a burning question, pop it in the Q&A section. I have noticed it's in the web chat. I'm going to try to do my best to read out those ones as well. I've also had a bit of a community get together, and some people have helped out capsule events, which is quite sweet. But yes, so it's all going very well. But if you do have some questions, pop them over into the Q&A, and as we get to the end of the session, we'll be able to hopefully answer as many of those as possible. Right, so I'm going to, not everybody's participating in the poll, but that's okay. But I'm going to end it and share the results so you can see that once again, it's quite funny.
Monthly.
Yes, yes. So
Yes.
monthly is quite popular, but there is about that. So how frequently do you have time to evaluate your email performance? Maybe people don't know what to look for, and maybe they're sort of struggling to find the time to do that. So me putting that at the end there, it's kind of skewed the figures, but maybe there's a bigger problem at play there.
I think that yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Dean, for that. I
No
think
worries.
I think if you're struggling to, it's very difficult to make time for evaluation, but it is key, and it is one of the strengths of email marketing. So I'm conscious of time because I do want to allow some time for questions. So I think what I'm going to say about evaluating is please do get in touch with me if you would like some support on how on what do the stats actually what does every email service provider has a reports section. What does it actually mean? I'm going to run through some key terms of that you'll see in your reports, but do get in touch for more detail about your specific stats. Um, just thought you might be interested in seeing why people are coming off email. At 47%, you can see email too frequently. So just making sure you're not in that overmailing situation. Um, Not subscribe deliberately. That raises that question of the use of the soft opt-in. If they feel that they didn't actually opt in, are they were given an opportunity to opt out, they didn't do that, and now they're being emailed. Is that part of that? So just that's why I always proceed with caution on the soft opt-in, but there are ways to test it. And the irrelevant content and email to impersonal, for me, those are all about relevance. So, that value that we talked about. And then finally, just on the report, you'll see the unique open rate because of the mailing privacy policy that Apple have created. Anybody signing up to Apple recently will have been offered the opportunity to sign up to the privacy policy, which means that the open rates are now not as reliable for those Apple users who've signed up to that. They're not as reliable as they used to be. Sadly, it means that they will report as opened, that they've opened the email when they haven't necessarily. This puts more emphasis on the click rate, which is great because actually, if people aren't clicking on your emails, that's tricky because you really do want them to respond to the content that you have in the email and carry on that experience through to the website. The conversion rate, how many people have clicked and then taken action. That's really important if you can measure it. And we have a tech champion who can help you track that on your Google Analytics or your website tracking. The rate of churn, this is how many people are joining the growth rate versus how many people are actually unsubscribing, and really understanding how what that means to you and what you can do to reduce it. Sorry. It's linked obviously to your unsubscribe rate, and your unsubscribe rate should be less than 0.5%. There's three more stats that are important. Your bounce rate, there's hard and soft bounces, but overall your bounce rate shouldn't be more, should be 2% or less. If you can track your sign up by source, you can really focus in on those sources, those touch points, those places where you're not getting growth in terms of sign-ups, and also, of course, build on your success. The return on investment, we've talked about that. For every pound that you spend in your budget, how much revenue are you generating? I just thought this might be useful. It's a nice new tool from MailChimp. They're just drawing on the billions of emails that the MailChimp users send out. They've calculated their average open rate, average click rate, unsubscribe rate, and the bounce rates. You can select from the drop-down menu, you can select arts and artists, entertainment and events, or music and musicians. So it gives you, a range of benchmarks to compare your performance with, if you'd like to. So in today's session, we've looked at the fundamentals of email marketing. We've looked at growing your contacts, so knowing your audience and managing those contacts. And we've looked at engagement, creating value and relevance. I'm aware of time, so I'm hoping that we're going to move on to Q&A with Dean. For those people that we don't manage to, reply to their questions today, I'm very happy to follow up in the email and share that as we email people post the webinar.
Excellent. Well done, Jacqueline. There are quite a few questions. So what I'm going to try and do is get through, like you say, as many as possible. So from a GDPR perspective, Hannah Brown would like to know, does having an intro sentence then limit you on what else you can then email the list about? Should you keep it quite open? Does that make sense? Have I read
Yes.
that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's that idea of not boxing yourself into a corner where you can only talk to them about events or only talk to them about workshops. Yes, you. So that's why in a lot of the those examples you see, I'm interested in. They're not saying we'll only send you that, but it gives a steer to the organisation about what primarily is going to generate that is going to build that relationship and be relevant to that contact.
Brilliant. So think about the Greenpeace example. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
So that's in your welcome automation.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, it is that model of I'm interested in that. You're not saying we will only send you or we'll send you. I agree. In the statement, it needs to be quite broad ranging so that you're future proofed, because you really don't want to be going back to your list, and people don't generally, but you don't want to be going back to your list saying, is it okay if we talk to you about this new area that we've just branched out into? I mean, that's not great, is it?
Cool. What period of time would you recommend setting before removing someone from the list? I'm assuming that's those non-engaged people on the list.
So I think initially I'd start out by the worst offenders. So those people who've been on your list the longest, never opened, never clicked. But it's also because it's also linked to your. It's a case by case because it does depend on your customer purchase cycle. So, for example, in cinema, you might be going, several times a month. But say opera, where they've got longer runs and you're engaging on a longer purchase cycle, maybe once every quarter or once, then you can imagine that people who've not engaged and they've got longer runs. So, people who've not engaged with their opera emails, where you've got this time between each production, may not be the same as, say, cinema. So it will be individual to that. How often can people realistically purchase and consume your offer, and how often can they engage with you?
Great. Now, one of these questions, I'm going to suggest that you message them afterwards, but it's Richard Taylor, and he wanted to know about his newsletter, which I think the first one was successful to 250 subscribers. However, the second one had a message from Microsoft to say that receivers had the servers had rejected the email, and all but six went through the second time around. So I reckon that's a one-to-one call, or even just an email follow-up, just to sort of get the details of that. Would that be fair to say?
I think that's great, Dean. I think that's, yeah, sensible. Yes.
Okay. We've got one question here. What if we're not selling anything? How should our email efforts change? What should we track?
Um, so well, it's still about engagement, isn't it? So the click is still key. What is it that you want people to engage with? And how does that feel? How do you create that value? Is value doesn't have to be a monetary um, value. It can be other kinds of value, obviously. And what I'd suggest is let's have a look at it individually and see, okay, well, what's going on? How can you create an experience for people that is positive, that ties in with your overall goals and aims?
Definitely. Yep.
Dean,
Okay.
I'm worried. I'm worried because we are at.
One out of time. Okay, cool. No, I agree with you. Let's wrap it up. We've got another 16 for you to follow up on, but I'll
Right.
let you.
Sorry about that, everybody.
Uh, well
Yeah,
done.
we will come back to you individually if that's okay, or and put some. Sometimes in the follow-up notes, I've put questions in where a number of people have raised that same issue. Thank you very much for attending. And I hope it's been useful and made, even if you're very experienced at email, giving you some things to look at and review and put energy back into your email.